Привет, everybody. So, I want to talk to you guys about some of my observations about the current war in Ukraine. What we are seeing right now is, to a great extent, the opposite of the types of things that we were seeing in the beginning of this war. In the beginning of this war, everybody was kissing Zelensky's ass. People were getting on their hands and knees for him. All of a sudden, he was this great heroic figure. I remember all of the obnoxious comments online about how, oh, he just has all of the weight of the world on his shoulders. He must have so much stress, tremendous amounts of pressure and stress. What a harrowing predicament for him to be in. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, you have all of these people on YouTube who are ex-military and they're experts on war and they're experts on firearms. And they do all of these videos just full of this Ukrainian ass kissery. It's so obnoxiously annoying. You see these videos and some guy who's like, oh, I'm a former army, ex-army, and watch this video of a Ukrainian soldier defusing a mine bomb with a tree branch. Oh my God, he has balls made of brass, bowling balls for balls. And it's just so flipping, like, it's obnoxious to me. I think it's obnoxious and annoying and silly and just, it's just not entertaining, okay? I don't like it. Anyway, now we're seeing something different, right? The vibe is changing, the mood is changing, okay? A lot of things are changing, and now you see the Americans telling the Ukrainians, okay, Ukrainians, you've done great in this war, you've killed a lot of Russian soldiers, yes, you took Kharkiv, you took some parts of Kherson, you're doing all these great things, you got these victories of yours, but now it's time just to shut the hell up and go to the negotiating table with Russia and to essentially make a compromise. Because if you are pushing somebody to make a peace deal with another country, you are telling that country to make a compromise. If you're telling a country you need to go and make peace with this other country, you need to go negotiate, what you're essentially saying is you're losing. Because if Ukraine was really, really kicking Russia's ass, do you really think the Americans would be telling the Ukrainians to negotiate? They would be saying, hoorah, hoorah, Ukraine. They would be waving that blue and yellow flag. They would be waving the American flag with the blue and yellow flag. Hell, they may just be waving that Ukrainian Nazi black and red flag. They would not be telling the president of this country to go negotiate with the opposing country if this country that you're pushing to go negotiate is winning. If the country is winning, why would you tell them to go negotiate? They're winning, right? You're on their side. It doesn't make any sense unless you simply come to the realization that Ukraine is not winning this war. It's not. Ukraine is not winning this war. I keep hearing this nonsense about, oh, Russia's losing, Russia's on its back. Russia still controls roughly 20% of Ukraine. Like, that's not a victory for Ukraine. Yeah, Ukraine has been getting victories, don't get me wrong. Ukraine has been making advances, but these have been small advances when you actually put those advances against the fact that Russia still controls a big chunk of Ukraine. And Russia, it appears to me that Russia's strategy has been really just to overwhelm Ukraine until Ukraine breaks. That's really what this is. And it really looks like it's working because the Americans are telling the Ukrainians, let's just end this, right? Let's just go to the negotiating table. Telling Ukraine to do this. Basically saying, Ukraine, you're not going to win this. And that's exactly what the U.S. said today. And I want to read to you guys some parts of an article. This was published today on Fox News. And it says, General Milley urges Ukraine to negotiate with Russia, saying chances of total military victory unlikely. And Milley says, quote, you want to negotiate from a position of strength. And I want to show you guys just the American BS doublespeak talk, all right? You want to negotiate from a position of strength. Russia right now is on its back. This is what Milley said initially. The probability of Russia achieving its strategic objective of conquering Ukraine is close to zero. So he says the chances of Russia taking over all of Ukraine is close to zero. Okay. You scroll down the article, and he says, now Ukraine has had great success, but Kherson and Kharkiv are relatively small. So yes, you took some territories back, but it's relatively small. And this is what he also said. So in terms of probability, the probability of a Ukrainian military victory, this is what this American major general said. The probability of a Ukrainian military victory, defined as kicking the Russians out of all of Ukraine to include what they claim to is Crimea, is not high. The probability of a Ukrainian military victory is not high. This is what the Americans are now saying. He's not saying, hoorah, hoorah, Ukraine. He's not saying, oh, Volodymyr Zelensky, big hero. He's saying the chances of you guys completely driving the Russians out of your country is very, very low. In other words, the Russians have territory, and the chances of you getting rid of all of them from this territory is pretty low. You guys should go to the negotiating table, which means you're going to have to make a compromise because Russia's not going to leave empty-handed, which means Russia's going to have to get something out of this. Something out of this. And if I had to make a prediction, I would say it's going to be the Donbass region. Now, I want to show you guys something else here. Because the Americans, and I've said this numerous times, the Americans are scared of Russia because they know that the Russians are a major nuclear power and they don't want things to escalate to the point where Russia will use nuclear weapons. Here's an article. This was published today by Reuters, and it says here that the U.S., well, actually a few days ago this was published, but regardless, it's still very new. U.S. Central Intelligence Agency Director William Burns was expected to caution President Vladimir Putin's spy chief at talks on Monday about the consequences of any use of nuclear weapons. And the Americans had a meeting with Russia, and the meeting was at the behest of the Americans. The Americans demanded the meeting. It wasn't the Russians. The Americans wanted the meeting with the Russians to tell the Russians not to use nuclear weapons. So here you have the Americans saying, Russia, don't use nuclear weapons, and then they're telling the Ukrainians, go and kiss Russia's ass. Who's winning this war? And does it sound like America really is just fearless before the face of Russia? No, America is scared of Russia. Make no mistake about it. And as the talk about America reclusing itself from being the police force of the world goes on, and remember, I said this I've said this numerous times in my videos. I've written about this many times. Basically, the Americans want the Germans to rise up. The Americans want the Germans to rise up so that the Americans can use them as a weapon against the Russians. They want the Japanese to rise up to use them as a proxy against the Chinese. They want the Turks to rise up so that the Americans can use them as a check against Russia in the Mediterranean and also in the Black Sea, but more so the Mediterranean. So that's something that the Americans got out of this war, because when the Russians invaded Ukraine, something sparked in Germany. And I don't remember the German word for this, but the English translation for this word is turning point. There was a turning point in the collective consciousness within Germany. And that turning point was basically revitalizing Germany's military. And Olaf Scholz started talking about, Germany having 100 billion euros for a military budget, talking about reviving Germany's military might, making Germany's military strong enough to where Germany can actually have a global effect, a global prominence. And the missile that hit Poland and killed 2 people, it's quite obvious that that missile came from Ukraine. And that area, from where the missile launched to where the missile hit, that area is extremely surveilled. If a missile is going to fly and hit, if a missile is going to fly from Ukraine and hit Poland, the Pentagon is going to see it because that area is extremely surveilled. So that's why when the event first happened, the Pentagon said, well, we really don't know, when they damn well knew, okay? And then Zelensky says, no, it came from Russia, which really means Zelensky was lying and Ukraine was lying because they wanted to use the deaths of those Poles as propaganda. And I did a video about that event, and I said that as America's reliability is questioned, and I've said this in numerous videos, and I've said this in many articles, countries like Germany are going to rise up. And you see what was reported today. Germany telling Poland, we can have patrols in your country, because it was Poland that got hit by the missile. So here's an article today. It comes from RT. Oh, that's Russian propaganda. Yeah, you're going to say it's Russian propaganda, but you were believing the bullshit coming out of Zelensky's mouth about a missile from Russia hitting Poland. And if you believe that, then you believe some Ukrainian bullshit propaganda. So don't tell me about Russian propaganda. And look what it says here. It says, Germany has suggested sending combat jets on patrol missions to Poland as an immediate response to an incident in which 2 people were killed in a missile blast in a village not far from the border with Ukraine. We will offer Poland enhanced air policing with combat air patrols, German Defense Ministry spokesman Christian Thiels told a media briefing on Wednesday. This can happen tomorrow if Poland wants it. So the German military in Poland. I see nothing suspicious here. I see nothing wrong here. I don't suspect that anything wrong could happen from this. I mean, I see no historical examples of Germany in Poland, you know. Nope, nothing wrong could ever happen from this. No, German military in Poland. And people will sit there and say, well, no, nothing wrong with this at all. But I look at history, and I understand that history echoes, and I understand that the things that happen in our present age and the things that will happen in the future will hearken back to the past, because history is a mirror looking at the face of the future. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.